Foreign Minister Mr. Salman Khurshid, who's already had a rather interesting tenure in the less than 1 month that he's been at his new job. Mr. Khurshid, thank you for joining us today. Like I said, you've only been at this new job for less than a month now. Do you feel it's a refreshing change from what you were doing? We're already seeing you generally wear more suits and ties than kurtas, although today's an exception.
Well, I'm trying to give a clear message that I'm not breaking off from my other engagements. Of course, you have to, in sartorial terms, you have to sometimes make adjustments, which I do. But more than that, I think you have to make adjustments in attitudes and give up some preoccupations, because this is a job in which you have to be extremely careful. You can't afford to make mistakes. You don't make mistakes easily, but even then you just have to be extremely careful, don't make mistakes, because so much turns on what you're doing. So yes, it's different, and it's exciting, and it's certainly very challenging. Now we'll have to see how one does.
Well, you've already faced some challenges. There are interesting and challenging things happening in the neighborhood, and I'll start with Pakistan first, because Kasab's hanging just happened a few days ago. What is your assessment of the reaction to his hanging in Pakistan, both officially and even in the media, where everything seems to have been generally quite understated?
Well, I think that as far as Pakistan is concerned, there seems to be a reasonably acceptable level in terms of the response that we've had, and some signals have been, I think, particularly satisfying. It couldn't have been easy for them, and I'm sure that many things that we expect of them are not easy, looking at their ground conditions and the complicated politics that they have in their country. And we certainly understand it. But at the same time, we expect that they understand our compulsions, and they understand our aspirations and our obligations. And I think it's that balance between us that is called for and necessary. And that's the balance that can allow us to move forward, mend the relationship wherever it's being damaged because of acts either of state actors or non-state actors, and then look at the positive side where we can, as we must, grow towards a more meaningful relationship.
But, you know, I'll come to that a little later in more detail, but there was also this rather contradictory sort of statements from both sides about, you know, whether Pakistan accepted the letter about Kasab's execution. You said on record, the government said, Mr. Shinde also said, that when we sent them the letter first in person with the Deputy High Commissioner, they rejected it. Rahman Malik, the Interior Minister of Pakistan, has denied very categorically. He said that no, we always accepted it. Who do we believe? We're both saying opposite things.
Well, I think that was in process communication that we were offering to you as the media, to keep you posted and informed about what the situation was at that time. It was important for us to underscore that as a country that believes in rule of law and the commitment that we have, including human rights, it was important that the family of the person be informed, and certainly the country, which is what we did. Now, I think to go now into greater detail of whether they accepted, or was there an indirect way in which they discovered, or the fact that we...
But you stand by the fact that what you said on day one, that they didn't accept the initial letter.
Well, I would, and I don't want to get into an argument on that, but I think we did what was the best and possible, and we don't go back on what we said that day. The important thing is that the communication was complete. They knew what was going to happen, the consequences, and our concern that the family be informed, and that could only be informed by authorities in Pakistan. To the extent that we could indicate this, we had done so.
Okay, so you're not going back on those words, but why do you think then they contradicted that? What would the possible logic
I think if you read all their statements, I think by and large there is adequate convergence between what we are saying and what they are saying. But this is not an issue on which we should stand on ceremony and on any kind of rigid ego positions. The substance of it is that they were informed, they have accepted that they were informed, And I expect that they thereafter have done what was necessary for them to do, which was to inform the family. We also had an address where it was indicated to us that the family would be available, and we couriered to that address the information that we felt should be shared with them.
Has anyone claimed Kasab's body? He's been buried there in Pune in Yerwada jail, but has anyone come forward at all from the government, from his family, anybody?
Well, not to my knowledge, and I would imagine that that this is consistent with the position that was taken for those people who suffered fatal casualty during the operation. They were also buried in unmarked graves in our country because there were no takers for them. And I assume that since it was the same group and the same operation, one would have thought that they would consistently do whatever they had done in the past. And we haven't had any other contrary information. Certainly we've had no signals whatsoever from any source seeking his body or his remains.
But if his family does seek his body, or Ansar Barni, who's a well-known human rights activist in Pakistan, he said he's willing to take the body from India. Would be willing to consider that?
Well, you know, it's this is a matter that will have to be considered on merits if such a request was formally made. A request made by family or on behalf of a country is one thing, country of the citizen, but a request by any well-meaning third party is quite another. But as I said, if there is a formal request, I'm sure the authorities concerned would examine it as rationally and objectively as possible.
There's also been a threat from the Pakistani Taliban in the last 24 hours saying that if Kasab's body is not handed over, then they will target more targets in India. How seriously are you taking that threat?
Well, I think any form of terrorism should not cause you undue anxiety, but you have to be careful. You can't be dismissive. We've had very unpleasant experiences in the past, so we can't be dismissive, and that's the reason why we requested the government of Pakistan to provide adequate security, and we would continue to do so as and when we feel that that is in the coming days or months found necessary according to our analysis. We would continue to make that request, but
so you take the threat seriously?
Well, I think one
shouldn't
shouldn't take chances. As I said, we've seen some extremely unpleasant things happen in the past, so one shouldn't take chances, but this is responsibility of the government of Pakistan. It's a law and order issue for them. It's a security issue for them as well, and I hope that they will take it seriously.
You know, the families of the victims of Mumbai and many others have commented in the last few days that Kasab's hanging doesn't really close the matter here, and I certainly think the government wouldn't think that either, because the masterminds are still roaming free in Pakistan. On the question of Hafiz Saeed, do you think we've hit a dead end with Pakistan on even being able to detain him? There seems to be a sense that it's just become frustrating to deal with them on this and it's not going anywhere.
Well, we're not giving up, and we haven't given up, and I think it would be unfair on many people in this country and on ourselves if we did give up. I think that there are some intractable issues on which you can't expect immediate relief response and reaction that you desire and you aspire to. But still, you have to continue. You have to continue your struggle, and you have to continue striving, and we will continue to do so, because it's not just about something that's happened in the past, which was extremely hurtful and tragic, but it's also, in a sense, unraveling systems that can be put in operation against us in the future. And unless we know the entire story and we are able to make people accountable for what they did, there would remain a big question mark about our security, safety of our citizens in future. And I think that's why it's important in both dimensions that we get to what we believe is the logical conclusion.
So you're saying you won't give up on that. I don't want to use the word precondition, but is it now fairly clear that the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Pakistan is linked to 26/11 and concrete progress on that?
I wouldn't say that, but at the same time, I can't say that it's irrelevant, right? Whatever is in totality different dimensions of our relationship with Pakistan, and whatever is linked with our relationship with Pakistan will obviously, every time we take a call, have to be factored in. What the impact of each of those things will be at any given time in an evolving situation will have to be decided at that particular moment. But this is not our strategic safety concerns, and obviously accountability for what happened in Mumbai is not the only factor. There are other factors that you look at as well, and it's the totality of those factors that makes you take a decision.
So, is a prime ministerial visit looking therefore very highly unlikely?
I'm not prepared to venture a guess on this. When the Prime Minister feels that he is ready to take a call, he'll probably ask us to provide analysis, inputs and suggestions, and then he will take a call. I don't think we should anticipate one way or the other, and we should leave it to the Prime Minister to take the call when he feels it's appropriate.
But is it a smaller window now? The elections coming up in Pakistan?
Yes, I think the window is closing in because of elections in Pakistan. And then our own elections will not be too far away once the elections in Pakistan are over. And there are a lot of other things that are happening between now and then. So, of course, the window is a very small window, but sometimes you can fly through a small window, and sometimes a very large window, and you still can't go through. So, as I said, I don't want to be more specific than this.
Very diplomatic answer, I must say, Mr. Khurshid. Let me turn my attention to China now, with whom we have a rather complicated relationship. There's been a leadership transition that's going on there. And from time to time, these irritants crop up between India and China. And today there is, as we have reported as well, a new row that's broken out over new Chinese passports that are being issued, where they're stamping a map of China that includes Arunachal as part of China, Aksai Chin as part of China. The Indians have sort of given them back in kind, as one official told me, by stamping the Indian version of the map on visas that are given to Chinese nationals. What can you tell us about this latest map row?
Well, you know that sometimes you disagree and sometimes you agree to disagree. We have issues with China. Everyone knows that, and we have a history with China, and everybody can recall that history. But we, as a nation, and this is not just governments, successive governments, but I think as a nation, we have opted, I believe, for an enlightened view of a relationship between India and China, as being imperative, as being desirable, and as being useful for both sides, mutually beneficial for both countries. And I think both countries have come to this conclusion, but the fact that we've come to this conclusion doesn't mean the problems that have existed have disappeared. We've put in place resolution methods as well, conflict resolution methods, and solving the issues that caused the problem in the first place, and that's quietly and discreetly moving forward, inching forward maybe, but definitely moving forward. Now there's a new generation of leadership in China. The signals we've had from them, the limited signals we've had from them, are encouraging, are positive, are good, and our response is, as it should be, that prima facie we should trust them, we should welcome them, and we should put forward our best foot. But
yet these things will happen, that they will continue to draw maps showing Arunachal as their own.
And we will continue to say what we say. Why should we get...
is this an agree to disagree situation? Well, is that what you think it is?
We never sat down and talked about how much we can disagree, but some things are implicit and some things are explicit. Some things you get accustomed to because the other side is doing it for a while. Something they get accustomed to because you're doing it for a while, and you don't every time sit down and take a tally of where you disagree and where you agree. But
so you're not planning to lodge a protest diplomatically over this issue, because it's not just India that is concerned with this new Chinese map. They've claimed the entire South China Sea as their own. Vietnam and the Philippines have officially lodged protest with the embassies in Beijing. So are we planning to do anything
Every country
similar?
has its own style, and I think every country takes a call according to to the circumstances as they exist at that given time. You know that we have participated in many different fora where freedom of navigation for the South China Sea is something has been emphasized over and over again. There are different resolution methodologies that are being proposed by China. Largely, they want to do it bilaterally with the countries involved. We have accepted much more of a multilateral approach. But
on this specific issue of maps, are you saying, in other words, that this is something, in a sense, we've gotten used to over the years? Because you're right, it's not the first time that the Chinese have come up with the map that shows Arunachal and Aksai as their own, and therefore, we've learned how to deal with it in our own way.
It's familiar, and in that sense, you might say that one gets accustomed to it, but not by accepting it. We are not prepared to accept it, and we will not. And we therefore ensure that our flags of disagreement are put up immediately when something happens. Now, you can do that in an agreeable way, and you can do it in a disagreeable way. We think that nothing calls for us to be disagreeable, and I think that what is being done is only one of the many things that we share and that we come across in our relationship with China. So you don't want to let anything hold the rest of the relationship hostage, unless it becomes something that at that given moment, in the circumstances that exist, becomes a very, very significant matter on which you then have to take a firmer opinion.
And since we are on the issue of the South China Sea, and we've seen China far more aggressive with so many other countries, and the kind of conflicts it has with the Philippines, with Vietnam, with Japan. What does India make of this highly aggressive China?
Well, we've noted it, and it's aggressive in the sense that it's a pushy and a firm position they've taken, but they do that also with Japan. They do it with Japan over the islands, etc. But that's their style. We have a different style, and all the countries involved in the region, each one of them have a different style, and I think it's all the styles put together that give you a sense of how Asia thinks and how Asia feels. I don't think that this should be seen as something to be unduly alarmed about, but that it is something on which we would wish to express our concern and would be concerned is certainly very clear. But I don't think these are alarm bell issues.
But issues of concern.
But there are issues of concern, and that concern has been consistently expressed. We do find occasional opportunity and appropriate opportunity to show our concern and to share it with other countries as well. But I think that we shouldn't rush into a very optimistic or a very pessimistic view of the final outcome as and when it happens.
Let me just ask you, Mr. Khurshid, to wear your political hat for a few moments. Lots of big political developments happening in the last few days. First, let me ask you on today's issue. There's been this huge row over the 2G report and the CAG's role, with a former official in the CAG who was responsible for drafting the 2G report, basically saying that he was forced to sign off on it. He didn't agree with the final number, also accusing the BJP's Murli Manohar Joshi, the chairman of the PAC, of contacting CAG officials and trying to influence them on the 2G report. The BJP has called this a government conspiracy today, and they have asked serious questions about why Mr. Singh, the CAG official, suddenly appeared after 1 year and made these comments in the media when there were reports about his reservations even a year ago. Why did he give these interviews now? What would you say to them?
Well, I would ask the same question. I wish he had said it earlier. Why is he saying it now? And I would ask that question of the media. Why are you carrying these statements now? Why couldn't you get the statement earlier? Now, I don't think that it's fair for any one of us to dissect the CAG. And I know that some of my colleagues in Parliament may be doing so, but they perhaps have greater freedom than I have as a minister. We do respect constitutional authorities, and therefore for us to dissect the CAG and actually look at and put them through a scanner to see what exactly was the difference of opinion between one official or another official, I think is not fair. You just take whatever is coming at face value, factor that into the preconceived notions and positions that people have had all these months, and then come to a conclusion.
But do you think that RP Singh's statement discredits the CAG's reports across the board? I mean, not just the 2G report.
I don't want to use the word discredit at all. I'm going to say it contradicts. Now, every time you have two positions, there is a thesis, there's an antithesis, then you have to find a synthesis. And when you have contradiction on facts, or you have contradiction on interpretations and on opinions, you have to choose. And frankly, in our system, when such a thing happens, with or without it happening, who's supposed to interpret and who's supposed to put a final stamp on it, accept or reject it, is Parliament. And so why don't we just allow Parliament to do this? But if Parliament will not be permitted to decide an opinion of the CAG is to be accepted or not accepted, is to be treated as correct or not to be treated as correct, does it require modification, does it require moderation? If Parliament is not to be allowed to do this, then who else can do it?
But there's been this collision course between the government and Vinod Rai, the CAG, for some time now. What do you think would have motivated Vinod Rai to put pressure on someone like RP and Singh, as he alleges, to sign off on this report or to have this inflated figure of 1.76 lakh crores as the government claims?
You can't attribute anything or imagine anything that happens within an organization. You can only go by the product of that organization, what they finally produce. What are the internal mechanics and how the internal chemistry of how things happen and work, etc., really is not for people on the outside to assume or to
No, I'm asking whether you feel that Vinod Rai has been politically motivated to do this, because it has been suggested by people in the Congress.
You can disagree with the CAG on what the CAG says without attributing motives. The trouble we have now in our country is that if we disagree, we have to attribute motives. And I believe that you can disagree without attributing motives.
So you're not attributing a political motive to him?
No, I'm not attributing any motive. Forget about political motive. I'm not attributing motive. I think in this country we have to learn to disagree without questioning a person's integrity and motive. And this is true about the CAG just as much as it's true about us, or for that matter any other constitutional authority. It's true about judges, it's true about investigative agencies, it's true about the police, it's true about Parliament. You can question and disagree, but to question and disagree shouldn't automatically be seen as a politically motivated or a narrowly motivated attack on the person with whom you disagree. And equally, the person who takes a position that you disagree with should not immediately be painted with a brush of motive simply because you disagree with them. Is it not possible in a democracy to disagree? That's why we have an opposition in a democracy. You can't say that every time you're in opposition you're dishonest, when you're in government you're honest. Just as you can't say simply because you've got elected into government you must be dishonest. That is the kind of conversation in this country and discourse in this country that will destroy us and destroy our democracy if we don't learn to respect each other.
You're also facing a big political challenge on the FDI issue. There's a sense we're getting today that the government may actually be ready for a vote and that everything will depend, of course, on how the resolution is finally worded. Is that a correct assessment?
Well, I know that my colleagues are working on it. I know that the Parliamentary Affairs Minister and the Commerce Minister have been working over time to reach out to people, persuade them, take their genuine concerns on board, and certainly persuade them not to stand on their ego about concerns that are not as serious as
But you're ready for a vote?
But I don't know. I mean, I think this is something that you will see only when we get onto the floor of the House and give you our decision.
But not ruled out then?
There would be, see, when you go into Parliament, you don't rule out anything. but you go into Parliament hoping for the best outcome for yourself. What is the best outcome in the circumstances that prevail today is something that my colleagues are better informed upon, and I'm not going to make their job more difficult by suggesting that the best option is, or the best outcome is the one that I've thought of.
But one final question, Mr. Khurshid, and this is on Rahul Gandhi, because when he was appointed head of that election panel for the next election, you said that now we know who our leader is, he is our commander. Is that a hint that he's also going to be the face of the party in the next general election to lead the country?
But he is the face of the party. I mean, frankly, I don't even know why these questions are asked. He is the face of the party, but he is not the only face. Mrs. Gandhi and the Prime Minister are also faces of the party.
I'm asking whether he's going to be projected as Prime Minister.
No, I'm not sure.
Is this one step towards that?
The most important thing about what Mr. Rahul Gandhi will do is what Mr. Rahul Gandhi will do. It will be his decision, and I can assure you, even now, very clearly and categorically, this must be his decision. He is very clear in his mind how he wants to move forward, and I think that it's important that we respect him for being very rational, very objective, and very careful about step-by-step forward movement.
But you've already declared him your commander, so he is the leader.
But he is a commander. A commander, there can be not 1, 2, 3, 4 commanders. There's also a commander-in-chief. I said he's a commander, and sometimes the field commander is more important for you, and the commander-in-chief sitting somewhere else is not that important for you, because you as a soldier are actually taking commands directly from your field commander. So in that sense, he's a commander. We are moving with him. The army will be listening to him, hearing him, taking commands from him, but he is part of the overall command, which includes the Prime Minister.
So you're not willing to say whether he's going to be commander-in-chief yet? Too early to say.
If I've said that he's commander, then when will he be commander-in-chief, or would he like to be more than a commander or a special commander? We'd like to hear from the commander himself. I think soldiers must not speak for the commander, but speak when asked to speak by the commander.
All right, Mr. Khurshid, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us.